What's up, everybody? Welcome to CanesInSight Live, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Mike Ryan in the house every Wednesday. We had a meeting. The first thing Mike talked about is professionalizing CanesInSight as an entity. First thing we do is show up about 15 minutes late to this live show. I apologize. There was a tsunami out there. Got caught behind a drawbridge, but we are here with the man himself. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Pete, hop in. Can I do that? You do that.
We got a new setup. We got him here in the corner.
Pete,
now.
hop in.
Looking all producery.
We got to get a border for your setup there.
Yeah.
How do you like our new snazzy script logo over here? It's to offset the color imbalance that we've had, where our traditional logo appeared teal in the middle. Now we're just all white there.
A little some stuff showing up on the borders where it's a little fuzzy, but other than that, I think.
Well, the operation, like we had a big snazzy meeting a couple of days ago. How do we make our studio look less like a 1970s porn studio was atop the list? And I'd like to say incremental gains. It's going to take some time. In the meantime, we're a 1970s porn studio with a new script logo.
It's like Cristobal said, actually like Bobby Bowden said, but I have now said about Cristobal to excuse last season. First, you lose big, then you lose small, then you win small, then you win big. So it's a continuum. We are making steps. Still a little 1970s porn.
Where's Miami on that trajectory?
Last year we were on the lose small.
Did we win small?
We're already getting a comment saying stay on topic.
This is the topic. This is Pete, hop in.
Yes.
Pete, hop out.
I'm here. I'm staying here. You can't get rid of me now.
Pete, hop out.
Let me say, by the way, about this logo. We were like the first people to use this kind of font. Shout out to Nicole Martinez back in 2012. Then Prince did an album, RIP, using this, and now it's kind of like ubiquitous. But this is, I'd like to say we're on the cutting edge of this font. But what can you say?
Look, the graphics department at CanesInsight's really humming. We have a snazzy new logo for Hurricane 2024, which is happening next Wednesday, 5 to 10, 5 hours. I committed to 5 hours, 5 to 10 p.m. Eastern time, a mini marathon to get you ready for week one. It's Canes. It's Gators. We're going to be broadcasting marathon style. We have many guests already committed. Happy to announce Chris Felica is joining us. Jorge Sedano is joining us. Kevin Clark is joining us. 2/3 of those people will be joining us from an airport, but regardless, they will be joining us. And that's just the tip of the spear when it comes to the guests joining Hurricane 2024, which is going to serve as a formal introduction to this season, a warm-up for the famous Steam Money preseason pod, but also to get you watching along to not just subscribe to official CanesInsight on YouTube, but also get off of the sidelines and into the game and join Canes Connection D.
Yeah, listen, this is the only chance you get to impact the product on the field. You're going to see the fruits of your labor, those of you who've already joined, on August 31st, but we're going to keep this thing rolling just as CanesInsight is getting bigger and better. The program's getting bigger and better, and all you jumping aboard with Canes Connection is going to take this whole thing to the top, bring it in tight, like Coach Cristobal said. So first, Mike, you brought this tweet to my attention, and I think it needs to be talked about. I actually retweeted it, and it got a lot of flack from some Florida State fans. They were real upset about the whole thing. I guess no one likes being called cheap, so it is what it is. But Florida State bragged to a reporter that they only spent 30% of their NIL pool on high school kids. They're like, we're ahead of the game by shortchanging high school kids and paying big money for the portal. Of course, that's a public forum. So high school kids and their families read that and realize they're getting the short end of this stick. FSU fans didn't want to hear it. They called me all kinds of names, but I just report the facts.
Well, we're all looking for the person that did this. The quote, the call's coming from inside the house. Like, why are you mad at D Money? He's just reading a quote that came from inside the collective. I don't understand the banter there. I also don't understand feeling any sort of conviction one way or another. I think we're way too early in this entire NIL experiment to say anybody did it right or wrong. I think Florida State did make some solid points within that article, D. I think they're certainly a program that got turned around by some of the work that they did in the transfer portal. However, you and I think, subscribe to the notion that you got to do a little bit of both. And it may not be a 70-30 split the way that FSU kind of articulated in that quote. And I think this year for Florida State will be really telling as to whether or not the way that they've been going about business is the right way, Or if it's all a house of cards and you don't have classes to back that up, where does that leave you? And thankfully, we don't have to wait too long to find that answer. They got a pretty tough conference test coming up in Dublin.
Oh, absolutely. Seamus, special guest picker for that College Game Day. But let's focus on this idea about the right percentage of NIL, because we had a discussion offline. I want to bring it on here. You, as someone who has completed many seasons in Dynasty. I don't know what year you guys are in. What year are you, Peter? Are you guys in?
Congratulations, Peter. Hop in. National champion.
You don't need
with
to
Liberty.
tell me to hop in. I'm staying on screen the whole
I'm
time.
going to keep telling you to hop in. I like saying hop in. Pete, hop in. Your Liberty Flames, national champion. All-American mode, though, so a bit of a qualifier there. But a last-second touchdown against Colorado. I should
bring up the play on Twitch. I didn't have it ready, but maybe
it wasn't really for
time.
that. But if you're deferring to anybody in their prowess when it comes to online dynasty mode in CFB 25, I do have to defer to Reverend Montgomery.
Well, I'll say this, Coach Lorem Ipsum over there, Mike. Well, I know they're not the same person, so I don't want to describe that. But he did launch a recruiting investigation against me, and nothing was found in the investigation. So
was a damning piece of evidence that you were sharing your screen to reveal 65 minutes of recruiting time when everyone else was adhering to the 50.
Listen, Jabu Ogwa, special player in his first year for the Flames, and as a freshman, led the rushing attack for the Flames.
We're getting bogged down here. I'm going to answer D-Money's. I'm sorry, you open up the CFB portal. But look, I don't know which way is the right way or the wrong way. I think if you go position by position, there are conversations to be had. You said something to me a couple months ago that kind of stuck with me. The fall of the Soviet Union. There was a race to figure out where people could win. And some of those people became oligarchs and became billionaires. And I think you can liken this whole new world of college athletics to that. And Florida State, they certainly seized on market inefficiencies that allowed them to really be competitive in the transfer portal. Did it come at the risk of losing a foothold inside the state in recruiting? Yeah, I think we can say that safely. Are they wrong? Time will tell. I think if you're looking at the very recent term, you could say that maybe their way is the right way, but I think this year is going to be really telling when it comes to that. However, I will say there are certain positions that you should look at. And D, I'll defer to you here because you know these talents much better. I know that you're going to be on the road this weekend checking some of those talents out. But I think let's hone in on quarterbacks. I think that there's an argument to be made for pretty much ignoring the position out of high school unless you're getting a certified 5-star quarterback that you think can compete for the job on day one, because there are so many serviceable guys that are going to be in the portal. And let's just say, hypothetically, like we're all hoping this year, the Cam Ward experiment goes really well. He improves his draft stock. Miami's in the CFP. What do you think is going to happen next portal season?
Yeah, it's like Lincoln Riley. You got the proof of concept. Do you want to be the next Heisman winner? You want to be the next first-round pick? Plug and play.
There isn't a single person watching this stream right now that wouldn't want to kick the tires on what's in that portal. There's going to be marquee names in there. There always are. There are going to be people. I refuse to believe that any one of you watching along are like, no, Emery's the guy. No, Judd might be the guy. No, Reese is the guy. If you had something that worked, it's why FSU keeps going back to the portal. You had something that worked, you'd be naive not to kick the tires on the transfer portal and try to replicate that formula. So what does that do for your quarterback room? You have an 18-year-old development project. I'd say if you have NIL resources going to that room, they might be better served in filling out positions that are harder to come by. You, in our conversation earlier, mentioned inside the trenches, cornerback. Those guys are really hard to come by, and that's where you should probably focus if you are going to recruit high schools hard.
Yeah, I like to focus on the NFL, right, to say what really plays. And when you look at the defensive tackle position at the NFL level, the premium guys, about Chris Jones, Simmons from Tennessee Titans, Dexter Lawrence, originally from Clemson, now New York Giants, Christian Wilkins with the Raiders. You can go on and on. These guys are not secrets. These guys have been the guys since they were walking the halls of their high school because they're easy to spot. There's only so many guys with that body type and with that athleticism. So to me, those are the guys that you want to pay for on the front end. They've been bag players since the beginning of time. It used to be, under the table to get your defensive tackles. Go to the Albert Mean scandal with Alabama, where they should have gotten the death penalty probably in the early 2000s. That was a big defensive tackle trying to pay him under the table. That's what the scarcity is. Scarcity. I mess that up every single time. Anyways, that's where you got to spend your money in high school, and you bring those guys in the fold. You're not going to get those guys in the portal. Quarterback, look at the NFL. Just you name me the top quarterbacks in the NFL, whether it's, Joe Burrow, low 4-star, high 3-star, not even the best player at Ohio State when he went in there as far as the position.
Was available in the transfer market.
You talk about Justin Herbert, 3-star guy, multi-sport athlete. Josh Allen, same thing, junior college guy. Aaron Rodgers, junior college guy. Lamar Jackson, 3-star from South Florida. Patrick Mahomes, of course, the best quarterback in the league. He was a 3-star Texas Tech multi-sport guy. What I'm getting at is the guys coming through in the draft and the guys that have had success in the NFL are almost all transfers, 3-star multi-sport guys, or both. So bring in transfers, maybe bring in some of those like faded 5-stars like a Bo Nix, a Jaden Daniels that were 5-stars at one time but are now moving on to their second spot. Or just get
like a Tate Martell type, you're saying?
You make some you miss.
I mean, the staff matters, development matters.
Yeah, if the player in question is using a hair product on a documentary for about 2 minutes of the documentary in front of a mirror, probably not the quarterback you should target.
I will say Florida had no idea what to do anytime he was on the field in that game. And it made you want to see more of Tate Martell. It was like a fire drill every time Tate Martell went on the field. Unfortunately, he had about half the snaps that Greg Rousseau did, which was also too few.
I want to bring up this comment real quick from Paul Erickson.
Pete, hop in.
He said, speaking of spending money, back-to-back emails from Cam Ward and Damian Martinez were enough for me to level up in Canes Connection. I felt special. Now let's go have a special season.
Paul Erickson, the Razor Ramon of the Great Plains. He's in Hutchinson, Kansas, and his contribution is impacting the product here in Coral Gables. So shout out to Paul. You want to be a booster? Everybody always says, hey, I got a friend who's a booster. You tell me what's going on in practice. He tells me what's going on in recruiting. Join CanesConnection.com/CIS. The link is in this bio. We can put it in the chat too, Pete.
Yeah, I don't want to get too sidetracked because we're having a good philosophical debate here, and I think it'll only get a little bit more.
Hey, don't get me going doing plugs.
But while you're in plug mode, like we've all been there over the last few years. We've all been in that stadium when it's sad. We've all been there when we lose to the likes of Florida State, wondering why this program can't get it together. And some of our minds venture to, they killed this program when they left the Orange Bowl. This program never spends the money. We don't have a real coach. Well, a lot of those issues have been addressed. Can't do anything about the Orange Bowl, but I would tell you that when that program is good, when it's something, when you have a good team, that venue is as loud as anyone in the nation. When Notre Dame came down here and game day was out here, it was electric. People that were in that building that have been to all the great venues in college sports told me that's the second loudest place they had ever heard, the second craziest stadium atmosphere they had ever experienced behind Death Valley in LSU. You have no more excuse. You now have an avenue to be a part of the change. And you can do that at $10 at a time, $25 at a time. You can just have some skin in the game. And that's what NIL has afforded us. And that's what Canes Connection has done. Plug the link.
Yeah, I got to plug the hat as well. I mean, the design on this thing is fantastic. I don't wear it as much as I should. I got to give the hair some air. But this hat is unbelievable. It matches everything. It's black and white. So this comes at, I think, the $50 contribution level. You get $1 off the first month. Or sorry, $1 only. You're paying the first month at any contribution level with CanesConnection.com/CIS using our link. And you get access to the private Zoom. So I give you booster level information on that Zoom. So you don't have to say, hey, I heard from a friend who's a booster. You're the booster when you're on Canes Connection. So back to the topics, we're flying off here. The idea about how you allocate this NIL money, something we talked about a lot of the CanesInSight podcast, but we had a big discussion there offline. If you have transfer quarterbacks and 3-stars thriving in the pros, you can do both, meaning you could spend money on transfer portal quarterbacks that you've seen. So now you're spending money with college film at your disposal. You know what you're paying for. And then the 3-stars say, hey, listen, I'm going to get the best athlete that's in that low 4-star, 3-star, maybe 2-star, whatever level. And I say, listen, this guy maybe has a 25% chance of hitting. But if he hits, he's hitting big because there's a lot of untapped potential with this guy once he starts playing quarterback full-time as opposed to playing multiple sports like Burrow playing basketball, Herbert playing every sport.
And I guess you're subscribing to the school of thought that if you're taking care of that developmental project with NIL while they're inside your program, if they get their skill level to a certain point, they're probably less inclined to test the waters inside the transfer portal.
They're cheaper because they're lower ranked. So you're not getting a 5-star guy that's the most hyped guy at the peak of his earning potential.
Well,
you're either getting a guy that was a 5-star that maybe struggled, now you're getting a little cheaper. That's the Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix. Or you're getting somebody no one's ever heard of, like, again, Pat Mahomes. If it was that easy, you draft Tom Brady in the 7th round every time.
Which I guess this staff is trying to do a little bit with Emory Williams. They're really high on him. So here is how I see this debate. We all know how important this season is. If we're allegedly in win now mode, if you go to practice, you see quarterbacks that have a ranging skill set that equal in impressiveness and all that stuff. But you wonder, 4th guy in that quarterback room, how is this going to help winning now? Isn't that NIL that is better served elsewhere, be it in the portal or high school recruiting in one of those more marquee positions? And I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer in this. I think time will tell. We're the first generation ever to be tasked with finding out how to work the NIL era. So I think there are going to be some missteps along the way. I think Miami has made some missteps and has shown you that they can learn from it. I don't know what the right answer is here, but if I'm just telling you in a vacuum, you have a 4-string quarterback that's not, if things are cooking and your NIL investment in Cam Ward works out, he's not going to see the field this year. Isn't that an NIL that's better served elsewhere?
I see a frustrated Miami Hurricane dynasty player who saw Judd Anderson go to year 4 and was disappointed with the results.
Judd Anderson in my online dynasty. Judd Anderson.
But, those guys are cheap. So I think the investment's less with those kind of guys. I think really the question is, do you invest when you talk about high school guys? Let's say you're going down that path. You're going to get transfer guys and you're going to get high school guys as well on the cheaper side. Are you going to get the Emory Williams, the Luke Nickel, who had a big win in the first week? I'm just seeing this Thursday against American Heritage, which I guess is tomorrow. Wow. So those guys are very much, I won't call them game managers because in high school they're very prolific, but they're not traits players. These guys are very smart. You saw Emory last year, Luke Nickel, Elite 11 quarterback, similar mold, very smart, know where to go with the ball, throw a catchable ball, kind of what the old school college quarterbacks, what Miami won with for many years.
What I think Shannon Dawson, if he had his ideal scenario, probably aspires to, I think he really, that's why the staff is so high on Emory. He's a guy that can manage the offense and get the ball out. I think ideally that's the type of quarterback that fits Shannon Dawson's system. But Shannon's pivoted from that a little bit. Cam Ward isn't exactly that. Cam Ward is not really a game manager. Cam Ward is a playmaker at the position. And so that's just more data points for Shannon Dawson to maybe confuse his process up a little bit more. But if you're recruiting for scheme, I can see that too. And Nickel appears to fit the scheme. So there's an argument to be made. I'm not here saying that I know better than the staff. The staff and Canes Connection know far better than I. I'm just asking questions because I see a room full of quarterbacks that's pretty stacked. And keep in mind, Ja'Cory Brown left the program. I'm wondering if the focus should be elsewhere in an open market.
Like the Eric Cartman South Park. I'm just asking questions.
I'm just asking questions because I don't pretend to know. This is like what, the 4th year of NIL? Like, who's to speak with any kind of certainty on this except for the people that are extremely involved? I'm just a proud member of Canes Connection, and I trust the people to make those decisions. But I struggle to wrap my head around how a 4-string quarterback can help you win now when the focus is on winning now. So I do think that there is some merit to what FSU is saying. However, I see that quote out there, and my mind already goes to Miami and how Miami works the transfer portal, but also very much works the high school circuit. And I'm salivating at seeing that quote right there. And this is absolutely something that's going to be used to negative recruit FSU.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, FSU is already losing on the high school recruiting. They're getting out-recruited. So it's very convenient to say, hey, we're getting out-recruited because we're spending more money on portal, even though I believe they try to get Cam Ward and have to settle for DJU and had other losses in the portal as well. So very convenient when you're losing in high school recruiting to say that, hey, we're not spending the money on high school recruiting.
I'm the last guy that wants to defend FSU, but it's also convenient for us to say that it's not working when they've turned their program around. They justifiably had a beef with the CFP. I don't think they should have been in the CFP, but I certainly understand if the shoe were on the other foot, we all would have been furious and we'd be looked at the way that FSU is. I can see them speaking on this subject with bravado, thinking that their way is the best because they have the recent results to suggest that.
Yeah, look, first of all, with the CFP, now we're talking about old stuff here. The rules say that they take injuries into account. I'm just saying they have, like, we would have been upset. I would have been upset when Jordan Travis got hurt if I was FSU. That's a bummer, But as far as the 4 best teams, I think we learned pretty quick that they were not even one of the top 40 best teams when we saw them against Georgia, and they got completely destroyed by a team that invests in high school defensive linemen, which I think Miami needs to continue to do. You saw that with the Justin Scotts, with the Armando Blunts. That's how Miami retains an advantage over FSU for the long term. Again, they have to win to kind of get over that hump, but if they get over that hump, it's hard to overcome that without recruiting high schools at a high level.
Pete, without going into redundant town here, I'm curious to know where you kind of see these things, because again, I'm just taking in data at this point. Well, I don't know what the right answers are.
You made a good point too, that it's year 4 of NIL, but remember, it's really only year 2 of the collections being the thing, because as someone who has worked with these guys and worked in NIL, the first 2 years was really local businesses coming together, giving these guys, these deals, and now it's collection based, right? It's a completely different ballgame. So you said it right. We're still trying to figure out what the best way to approach these things are. There's a comment here that says most of the stars in the NFL, superstars, are 3 stars. Those numbers are skewed. I think D is hitting it on the head in terms of, like, there's certain positions that I believe should garner more money because those guys at their positions are game changers. I think interior defensive linemen. I still think pass rushers in general, the edge guys, corners, lockdown corners. But I think you can find and you can recruit a lot of guys at certain positions. Now, when you look at receiver and running back, Miami obviously still this year had to go out and supplement, right? So I think the portal, at the end of the day, you should be using it to supplement what you have not been able to get at a high level from the high school level, right? So I'm agreeing with what D Money's saying, that certain positions, I think you got to pay early and often on those. And then there's others that the tight end position, for example, it's a very tight end offensive line. It's another one you need to spend on, but there's a lot of guys who can develop. The body types are not fully where they will be, in 2-3 years once they get to a college weight.
Yeah, and tight end, you've highlighted a position where Miami struggled in recruiting out of high school and made some missteps fairly recently in that regard, and has gone to the portal. We'll see if Arroyo develops. That's a notch on the belt for developing your guys, and he had health. It's a totally different thing. McCormick supplements nicely, to your point, Pete. But yeah, I think there are people that have some PTSD when it comes to recruiting that position out of high school.
Yeah, I don't think McCormick, when he came out of high school, they were even stars. I think it was like letters, so I don't know what he was ranked.
Guys, we have some questions here. There's an interesting one here. It's kind of, it's not really on this topic, but in a sense, I think it has to do with this year's team. James Smith asking if you guys can add any player from another ACC team and add them to this year's Canes team, who would it be and why? I just right off the top of my head, this one might be a sore spot for some Canes fans, but I think Daryl Jackson from Florida State.
You took mine.
I couldn't think of any defensive backs off the top of my head in the ACC, but I think Daryl Jackson is, again, not that this team is lacking on the defensive line, but I think he's the prototype and the body type. Now, Canes fans may say, look, he barely played he didn't play last year until the end of the season. His stats weren't great at Miami.
But he couldn't play until the end of last season.
And his impact is not going to be seen in the box score necessarily. There's a reason he's a legit NFL prospect. I had scouts telling me last year he was a guy who was, draftable last year, even though he didn't play. So, not to get too off topic, but I do think is an interesting question.
I can't imagine how good we'd feel about Miami's defensive line if Daryl Jackson were here. I know that people are inclined to smack talk because he's a Seminole, but he was a good player for us. And you know where I stand on that based off our conversation last week. I'm not going to be rooting for him to do well in that uniform, but I do certainly wish that he was still here. He was a really good player for us and would fit in this D-line so well. I can't even imagine having that size. That is number one with a bullet for me, Pete. I'm kind of jealous of you.
I know some Kevin Concepcion comments here.
He's a really great player. He's a tremendous player at the wide receiver position. Would do a lot. There's a lot of good players in this conference, and I do think that it's going to be an interesting year for the ACC this year in terms of national attention, and hopefully they can win their interconference games and really shine a light that there is a lot of talent here. But those two are really at the top of the heap.
Yeah, I mean, that was my pick too. So we all had the same thought. I always loved Daryl Jackson. Sorry to see him go. Quincy Riley from Louisville, good defensive back. Louisville's always had really good defensive backs, and I think this particular Louisville defense was underrated last year. We talked about their offense and how they picked apart Guidry with play calling. They really did have good defense as well. Saw Jalen Alderman from that defense starter join the Miami Hurricanes, which was a great get. I think Quincy Riley in the defensive backfield, we just need more. We need another. It's not so much that the guys we have can't play, just we need more.
It would give you more assurance at the position. Right now, some guys have to step up. And you don't really, like, if you look at this Miami roster right now, there's not a lot of projecting. There's some fully formed players that have done stuff for you in the past that you know can contribute to this system. There are guys in that secondary that you do have questions about because you haven't seen it happen yet. So you would like maybe one more surefire product that you have fairly recent tape on. Another person that's kind of put tape out there like Mish Powell, you kind of know what you're getting at that position. I think cost certainty in such a wild world right now, which is kind of what we're talking about, is gold. And that's what I was kind of getting at when it came to recruiting high school quarterbacks. Cost certainty. When you have a budget, when you're dependent on collectives and you're strategically identifying talents, maybe a guy that is figuring to be the fourth guy in a room, maybe that's better budgeted elsewhere.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you talk about ACC players, it took a second. And I think the reason it took a second, maybe the rest of the ACC is down, but also Miami's really up. So like Omarion Hampton's the first name that popped in as far as a great player.
Yeah,
but
fantastic player.
We got Damian Martinez there, right? Concepcion, who you mentioned. We got some pretty good receivers. Barrett Carter from Clemson. We got some pretty good linebackers. He'd start here, but it's not like you're screaming for a linebacker like we were a couple of years ago. So I think
we got a question here that someone asked what we thought about Jacob Fatu, and I'm trying to find out which team he plays for in the ACC.
He's a hot name in the portal. I do think he'd be a star linebacker over here.
Oh yeah, he sounds like a defensive lineman for like Georgia Tech.
Peter, I need you to gatekeep. All right, you're the gatekeeper. You can't let these fake wrestler names continue to infiltrate CanesInSight, especially on our Wednesdays. We have the tail end. We have like the C block for that stuff.
We're half the questions here are wrestling related, so I'm trying to sift through them right now until we get to the end.
Jacob Fatu, I mean, total game changer. He's got like 8 kids too, so this storyline might continue until 2050. But a dynamic athlete. Samoans, it's the same philosophy I applied to the University of Miami. You can't have enough Samoans. You just can't, because then they have relatives that are good. They bring a culture and a tone that you like. You know what you're going to get. Talk about certainty. I mean, how many Samoan busts are there? You don't hear about Samoans going bust because of social media. How was the last Samoan you heard?
I mean, we haven't historically. Media? I don't have a lot of like frames of reference because historically Miami hasn't been a Samoan football player hotbed.
They don't go bust. You don't watch QB1 and see Samoans putting hairspray on, in front of the mirror for an hour like Tate Martell did. These guys come to play. So wrestling, football.
Yeah. It's a nice shirt that you have on, by the way.
Oh. Croqueta County, shout out to Isla Canarias.
Show your right sleeve there, dear. You're it's a little off air. You got it there.
Right there. Finca as well. Finca, Isla Canarias, the whole Andrade dynasty. Shout out to Eileen, John, the whole crew. Best croquetas. I mean,
bar none in South Florida. Number one in the world, really. I mean, I don't know how they're doing in Cuba, but I bet the ingredients aren't what you're getting. Almost goes without saying, if you have the best croqueta in Miami, you have the best croqueta in the world.
That's what it is. And then also Finca, if you want a little higher dining out there in the West, best in the business. Look, Korean-Cuban fusion. So shout out to Isla Canarias. We got some news coming. Stay tuned on that one. But we did have some more questions. People were trying to bring us back on
one
topic.
Here from Johnny Lagoon asking about health and suspensions. I know that you obviously suspensions, you really never know until game day, what happens there week one. But
it's a time-honored tradition, the surprise week one suspension.
Yeah. Let me address this, and Mike, you jump in on this, because I got this a lot on the CanesInsight.com message boards, which, by the way, people some questions from there when you get a chance. Sign up for free, 6.9 million posts and counting. People are asking about, Mario, is he locking everything down? Look, I'll be real. We have had the opportunity to see what's going on out there. Just because we're not going out there and broadcasting everything, it's not because we're trying to disrespect you guys or anybody else. It's because the Florida Gators are the first team on the schedule, and we don't want to be leaking stuff out like the Gators have done, because I promise you, the good teams dig for that kind of stuff. They're supposed to be digging for that kind of stuff. That's what smart teams do. You assign low-level staffers to do it. I know they do it because I know I know it's done. I've seen it in action. So, entries to suspensions, we keep that quiet. Here's what I'll say, and again, I think we can say this with some accuracy and some credibility. Mike, tell me if I'm wrong. I think overall, from a health standpoint, if you ask the coaches, do you want to be where we are on August 21st? I think they'd say yes.
Yeah, it's been encouraging, especially considering some previous camps. You had the devastating Citizen injury before. It's still early. I don't want to tempt fate, although we are past probably the trickier part when it comes to injuries anyways, in terms of physicality in practice. I think that we've come through that test kind of with flying colors. But thankfully we have a deep team. Injuries are a part of the game. There are going to be injuries. There are going to be injuries that really, really hurt this season. It's a next man up mentality. Thankfully the depth has not been touched by injury either so far, D.
And by the way, what a great name. This guy had 2 questions. I love it. Johnny Lagoon. What a name.
I was trying to see which team in the ACC Johnny Lagoon was playing for, because just based off name alone, I'd want him on this team.
If you're a coach in the ACC or wherever that wants to if you're a coach for Louisville or FSU and you want to cheat on your wife or break some recruiting rules and you want to use a fake name at the hotel, Johnny Lagoon, that's the next one that we're going to see in the papers.
When it comes to suspensions, I am telling you right now, I'd lie to you if I knew about suspensions, but it's genuinely the first that I've heard about it. But it's week one of the college football season. Those things are generally surprises anyways, but I was surprised to hear that these rumors were floating out because I hadn't heard anything. But if I did hear something, I wouldn't tell you.
Yeah. But that's right.
The cards on the table there, folks. Choose to believe what you want to believe, but it's the first that I'm hearing about.
But sleep easy. So Johnny Lagoon, are there guys that are committed elsewhere that we're circling back to? Great question. Here's the overall, and I'll give you specifics in a second. Miami expects to win. So there's a lot of hay in the barn as far as this recruiting class. They got a lot of guys that they think can play. You saw Gerard Pringle, what he did the first week against Norland from Seth Norwood, our running back commit, completely lit them up. Georgia's calling, Alabama's calling. He's a firm Cane. So there's guys that have been evaluated, have done very well. You've seen Cole McConaughey and OJ Frederick from last year's class.
Yeah, D, I got to give you credit. The times that I've had the pleasure of watching this young man in spring and fall, he's really flashed. And I think I was a big fan of yours and Peter's interview with Cole. And I think this is an impressive young man that might actually have a role as a true freshman this year. I think you guys nailed that one.
Listen, these guys, the staff are doing a tremendous job of evaluating guys with traits, with production, with, genetics. This guy's dad played, just the whole package. And when you look at it, you say, why is this guy a 3-star? It doesn't add up.
Doesn't.
And, listen, the stars are getting better. I'm a big star believer, but you got to look past it sometimes when a lot of boxes are checked. And I think Frederick, McConaughey, when you look at where they came from, good competition, great size, great athletic ability, good character, just a lot of traits that translated. And it's still early. These guys for now are just Green Tree All-Americans because we haven't started playing football on TV yet. But I think guys are going to like what they see.
You see body types, you just go from frames, and he is everything that you would advertise him to be. He doesn't look like he's in year one of this program. And then it makes you start revisiting body types and stars because people project. I think Lightfoot's going to be a tremendous player because I've seen plenty of great highlights. But if I look at a body type that's probably more ready for right now, it's the 3-star and McConaughey. So how do you reconcile the 5-star and the 3-star then? And
different roles, Lightfoot I think is going to be more of that pass rusher with the speed off the edge. And then McConaughey with the bigger body type is going to be more of your, base, old school base end. So I think they're both going to do well, but you're right. One of them is, I think, more advanced in terms of ready to play now. But I think in general, Miami thinks they hit this D-line class pretty well. In fact, I know they are ecstatic about it.
Oh, I love the D-line class. But I do think that Lightfoot, and he's got a great coaching staff to bring him along from a physicality standpoint, from a ready to go right now standpoint. McConaughey's probably a little further along.
No question. And then Lightfoot, Pickett, Elias Rudolph, I think, are in a similar boat, just skinny guys with great athleticism that are, look, they got the best coach for that type of body type you can possibly have, Hall of Famer, first ballot. I want to shout out Oregon. Kane, appreciate your support. And Johnny Lagoon, we're going to get back to your question in a second, but Oregon can appreciate your support. He says, looks to me like Mario focuses on a position group each year in recruiting. This year is clearly the DB group. What position you see in targeting next year, and do we take a portal QB? First of all, again, thanks for the donation. You're exactly right about targeting position groups. D-line was last year, O-line was the first year, DB this year. By the way, let me know in the comments where you're from in Oregon. I go there every year. My dad is from Milwaukee, right outside of Portland. So shout out to Oregon, the whole state. The position group for next year.
I'm going wide receiver, D, because obviously it should be a really good class this year. But you're losing Restrepo, you're losing Jacoby George, you're losing Sam Brown right off the bat right there. Excited about what's behind them, but I think that would logically be because, look, really excited about this group right here, but we've been talking about this receiver room for how long, lacking elite top-end guys consistently, D. And I want to reiterate, very excited about this group. I think Sam Brown out of those three has a chance to be a top 100 pick. Restrepo, we know what he's done at his level, but looking forward, I think wide receiver D. Because again, we talk about the NFL trends a lot. That's the position that's getting paid in the league right now. I think Miami needs to consistently have elite guys at that spot.
And thanks for jumping in. I get a lot of "Where was Pete?" text from my dad after the show, so you were a little quiet there.
Yeah,
so
your dad told me straight up to my face, "Where was Pete?" So we have to Pete hop in. I'm with Pete though. The further you get away from the ball, that's where your focus needs to be. We're entering this fall with some questions about the secondary, primarily corner. I think we're feeling a little bit better from what we're hearing that's coming out of camp, but you're losing a lot of talent in that wide receiver room, and I think you need to stack some guys in that secondary. So I think the further you get away from the ball, the more your focus should be.
And I'm going to repeat an answer, which is defensive tackle, big defensive lineman. That was the last year, the class of 24, paid out great, but you got to always be bringing waves of those guys. That's what Georgia does. That's what Ohio State does. That's what Alabama does. If you want to play in that sandbox, it's not just you have one great defensive line class. You got to stack them up. This year, some good talented players, more guys you're betting on the upside with 17-year-olds, guys like Dante Simpson, Micah Newton, who are 3 stars now. I think they'll develop into the 4-star types, but you want to stack the Justin Scotts and the Armando Blunts of the world. I think that's where Miami needs to really hit next year and really every single year.
Yeah, at least you know that you have Bain on that D-line for at least another year.
And he can play inside too. He's up to 285.
Yeah, we'll probably see some of that this season. I'm excited to see that. I have the privilege of speaking to Calais Campbell, who's also a guy that bounced around along that line. And while they are not the same size from a power and a technique standpoint, it's actually a pretty good comp, especially when you apply the versatility there. And a great thing about having Calais Campbell in town playing for the Miami Dolphins, taking that hometown discount, is that he gets to be around camp a hell of a lot more, and particularly gets to be around Ruben Bain a hell of a lot more.
We have a question here from Champy11. Can't wait. And this may, there may be a joke here that I shouldn't show on air. I don't really, know.
Probably is, Filete.
Yeah, well, it's definitely him. But he says, can't wait for the wrestling talk today. Looking forward to Mike talking about his favorite wrestler, Goldust.
Thank you. My favorite wrestler for this week actually had a feud with Goldust. So there's that. Champy, thank you so much for your contributions and your support. We look forward to next week when you're active in the comments during Hurricane 2024, a 5-hour extravaganza, which we'll probably talk a fair amount of Goldust.
Oh, phenomenal performer. One of the most versatile guys.
Got one of Roddy Piper's best matches ever. Thank you for the vine, Filete.
Hands down. Committed to the craft. There was a story that he wanted to get breast implants at one point just to fully play the character. This was back in 1995,
it's commitment.
96.
It's commitment.
So, ahead of his time. Shout out to Goldust.
Not my favorite wrestler though, Champy. Are you going for a thing there? Probably my third favorite Rhodes though.
Third favorite Rhodes.
Question from the site. I wanted to get to a couple from CanesInsight.com.
Yep.
6.9 million posts and counting.
At what point do we get to 7 million?
It takes a long time. Millions go slow. Or point one's a lot. That's 100,000. Yeah. So let's see where
I like this. I like the first question here from Graz Dozer. What would be a better bet for the Gator game? Restrepo 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, or Martinez 150 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns? I'll go with the Martinez one there, but
Shout out to Graz, proud papa. By the way, 16,000 is what we still need. We'll get there soon, especially when the Canes beat the Gators. And we're talking about these two players putting up big numbers. So Restrepo and Martinez. I'm going to go with Martinez because one thing about Martinez that I think people don't realize, I personally did not realize it until seeing him on Green Tree, is this guy's got a lot of speed. I mean, he's not just fast for his size. He's pretty fast. I think the cat's out of the bag because it was in the Canes camp thing that they put out on YouTube. You saw him running for that long touchdown, which we're lucky to see live, but now it's out there. This guy can make big plays. That was a 75-yard run. So this is a dude that has explosive speed on top of the power. The Gators were susceptible to big plays in the running game last year. Offensive line last year created a lot of big holes that guys like Chaney, Parrish couldn't really capitalize on. And I think one difference between this year and the past year in the running game is going to be the explosive plays. So starting game one, Martinez makes an explosive run, sets the tone for the rest of the season, and then gets over that 150-yard hump.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy. Martinez, just from what we know about this coaching staff, the style of play that they want to run, and the fact that it's week one, hot day, afternoon start in the swamp, that kind of lends itself to Damian Martinez. But also on the other end, when you look at Restrepo, you can make an argument that in week one, he might have the fewest receiving yards of those three. When you look at George, Brown, and Restrepo, we had a charmed existence here, and Restrepo's been a wonderful player, undervalued coming out of high school, been a great Cane. His name's going to be all over the history books, but this isn't the same kind of relationship that he had with the last quarterback who genuinely looked for him to be his first option, sometimes his only option. I think you're going to have a quarterback now with Cam Ward that won't cower under the fact that there's a zone. He'll look to find the pocket. Sometimes Xavier Restrepo will be the benefactor of that, but I think he's going to look to stretch the field first. I think from what we've seen of him throughout his time in other schools, and now he certainly runs through his progressions. And I think he's going to be thinking he's got a big play mentality that probably serves the other receivers a little bit stronger. I'm curious your thoughts here.
Agree with that. I think Restrepo, you're going to see less yards, less catches, more touchdowns. I think in the red zone, you're going to see double-digit touchdowns from Restrepo. He's 210 pounds.
Double-digit touchdowns is a big number.
He had 6 last year, and I think with Restrepo, now with having Cam Ward, someone asked me the biggest difference between Cam Ward and TVD. To me, Cam Ward's just a smarter guy.
He can read his own.
He's a smarter player. Yeah. Talking to him, I mean, he just seems like a smarter guy. I don't know how else to say it. And
he was asked a little bit during the ACC media week about like zone defenses. He's like, "What? They show you where the pocket is. You find the guy in the pocket." I'm like, "Wow, that was a refreshing answer given what we saw."
Well, we got to see it in action, but I'm confident in him. And I think with Restrepo, 210 pounds, he's the smartest guy on the field. You mentioned zones; he can find the soft spot there. I think when it comes to that red zone area, which is an area Miami struggled in last year, TVD threw a lot of picks in the red zone.
Arroyo should help.
Arroyo should help, but also I think Restrepo is going to be bigger factor than your average slot receiver because he's just bigger than your average 180 pound slot
you were
receiver.
telling me that people project him potentially at the next level as a running back because of his body
that's what
type.
I was getting last year a lot because I don't know what he's going to run. That's one of the questions about him.
He's got good game speed.
His game speed's fine, but I mean he can take a hit as we've talked about here. After the catch, again, he's not busting off 20, 30 yards after the catch, but, in these small windows can take a hit and get upfield. So definitely, I think he has a future to the next level, but, we'll see where that ends up being. We have a question here, another one from the website from Hurricane Herb that I think is an interesting one. What's the most overhyped variable or aspect going into this game? I'll say that I do think that Canes fans have been a little bit, underselling, I should say, Mertz a little bit. I think he's better than people realize. Is he the most dynamic quarterback in the country? No, but the offensive line, obviously a question, but I don't think he's going to lose this game for them. Now, are they going to have enough explosive plays? That's a whole other question, and that may not just fall on him. But I don't think that Mertz is trash, as I think some Canes fans have kind of alluded to.
I'm jealous of how you answer that question, because rather than mention the oversold part, you went to what's undersold, which is a lot easier to answer, because we are a part of the hype machine. I think we've actually been fairly responsible in managing expectations and saying your concerns are valid when it comes to the secondary. We got to see these players do it. I think one thing that you're underselling is merch is solid. And I think the fact that, we like to make fun of Sunbelt Billy and the fact that program hasn't done so well, and that his job may be on the line, and they got a tough schedule and all this, and it's a disaster. Beat Utah week 1, beat a coach that kind of had Mario Cristobal's number in that week 1 matchup against Utah. So I think you give him several months to strategize on how to beat a specific opponent. He'll do the best with his game plan. I don't think the game plan is going to be the issue. I think what will be the determining factor between these two teams will be the talent level.
Absolutely. And in the trenches particularly, which is hard to scheme around, right? I mean, when you're that close to the other individual, at some point physical dominance takes over. We've seen it with Alabama and Georgia so many times, or Ohio State, where they're just, they're taken by surprise. They're maybe on the road, they're on the ropes, but then that physical dominance, the big 230-pound back, just kind of takes over and equalizes and creates that margin.
How many times have you been to the Swamp for a Miami game?
I was there when McGahee ran all over him in 2002. I was there when we lost with Sean Spence and company.
Yeah.
That was a 9-3 game going to the fourth quarter, man.
Oh, and SEC refs. They tried to tell us it wasn't an SEC refs because it was an interconference game. And then we found out SEC refs. And then Urban trying to take care of some boosters, trying to cover that spread at the end of the game. But I will say that where I'm getting at is it's legit. It's a good atmosphere, folks. Like you can't knock it. That place, especially when they don't have a loss in that L column, like that place is going to be as hostile as it's going to be all year long. They haven't had a reason to give up hope. Hopefully Damian Martinez on that first try gives them a reason to doubt, and you can hear the wind let out of that place. But that place is legit. Like it can be rocking if they feel like, and it'll be a bigger factor the longer you keep Florida in that game. And so I hope that we make this easy. I would like to be chilling back in my hotel, dipping in the pool, having the entire night in front of me celebrating, because Miami put it on them early, and that team and that stadium stopped believing. But if you give them a reason to hang around, you make a mistake on offense, you play undisciplined football, that game's only going to get tougher the more they're hanging around.
Yeah, look, the stadium, the way it's constructed, the kind of the humidity in the air, yes, it gets very loud. The fan base, to me, is a quite dorky fan base. They get dorkier every year at the University of Florida. I think if you put a Kidditch game, what's the Harry Potter
Quidditch.
Quidditch. You put a Quidditch game in there, it would get just as loud for those guys. But yeah, it will be loud because of the dynamics.
I am looking forward to the I won't back down tradition that they've installed since Tom Petty passed. As you know, my song of the week last week was Tom Petty. Why am I'm positive FSU, positive Florida guy on the show.
Their chance, what they 1 bit, 2 bit, 3 bits, $1, all for the Gators, stand up and holler.
You know it too well, D. I don't know. It seems like it's ingrained in your.
I like the rivalries. I'll take the banter as much. There's no shortage of banter in these YouTube comments and on the forums. I think that I want the entire state of Florida to come back. I want these games to matter a little bit more, and I certainly want to be atop that group when the day comes.
I don't want the entire state of Florida to come back. I'm very happy to see these guys suffer. I mean, I like the state of Florida as a state. It's doing pretty good. Yeah. But as far as the teams within the state, I'm happy to see them suffer. Segue to my guy, the original Kane. The money will hit your number close to the Gator game, meaning the 7 million post, thanks to Gator Tiers. So for those who don't know, Pete, I don't know if you could pull this up. Yeah. It's on the recruiting board. We have a thread called Gator Tiers on the CanesInsight forums, which basically what we do is we just post, screenshots from the Gator forums or from Twitter of Gators crying about their misfortune, which if you've been paying attention the last few years have been plentiful, losing more games than they win. So this is probably our most active thread. I'll just pull up the latest here. We got about 9 million views on this thread alone, 3,943 pages of Gator Tiers, 79,000 post replies going back to 2017. So the whole Gator Tiers thread, again, 9 million views, has sort of been building for what's going to happen on August 31st, which will be the crowning moment of Gator Tiers. So if you are obviously going to be watching the game, once the game's done, I recommend going to the CanesInsight.com forums. Again, sign up for free. It's all free. Get your name. Go to the Gator Tiers thread in the recruiting forum, and you'll just see people posting examples of the Gators crying about their bad offensive line, about their defense getting shredded, about fire Billy Napier, and it really is quite a delight. So I cannot recommend the Gator Tiers thread enough. Shout out to the original Kane, RVA, all the folks that make that thread great. Salute you, and that will get us to that 7 million post.
Yeah, and then counting.
And then it'll count again. Yeah, we'll keep counting.
Yeah. By the way, if you're watching the stream right now, please hit that subscribe button. YouTube.com/@officialcanesinsight. Costs you nothing. Help us grow this brand, because we're showing you that we're about this life. Beginning next week with a 5-hour marathon to get you hyped. That preseason pod, I cannot wait. That is one of the time-honored traditions here. In recent years, it's been the highlight for many Canes fans. So we're going to be the launch pad for that. That podcast coming out next week as well. It really figures to be one of the biggest weeks in program history. That just doesn't go for us. You've had luminaries, Florida Gator luminaries, making the argument that this is the most important Florida Gator game since 1988. So I'm not the only person that is hyping up this game from an inflection point in college athletics standpoint. From a Miami standpoint, and now you're hearing the Florida Gators fans and luminaries chime in. This is a massive game for both brands. Nationally, it's kind of viewed, to borrow a wrestling term, as a loser leaves town match, in that the losing head coach is going to be facing a lot of national scrutiny, a lot of local scrutiny. Mario Cristobal, despite having some bad losses, despite having some bad moments, I mean, last year is what it is, turned a win into a loss against Georgia Tech. Pretty charmed existence locally. People are bought in on this process. You lose that game, the narrative flips a little bit, D.
No question about it. I love the analogy of loser leaves town match. Reminds me of like when the wrestler loses, then he gets mad at his manager because the manager's kind of berating when he beats him up. I think that could happen to a Napier, kind of like a WrestleMania 7 situation with the sensational Sherry. But we got a question here from the Fonzie schemer himself, Afonso Restrepo. He wants to know, what tailgate drink are you boys picking for the tailgate outside Ben Hill Griffith Stadium for D-Money? What flavor kombucha? So, Mike, what are you drinking? I'm sure some folks might get you some here listening.
Well, I have corporate sponsors on other properties.
Plug it.
I love a Miller Lite, especially when it's 1,000 degrees outside. I like beers during tailgates. I'm a simple man in that regard. I like tequila as well, but we'll see. We'll see whatever's around. You can't beat a free drink, no matter what type. So I'm not super picky there. Pete, what is?
I'm a Michelob Ultra, man.
Yeah.
It goes down like water.
Yeah,
so keeps me nice and hydrated in game day.
Gotta keep the figure. I go with Hi-Yo Social Tonic. Mindful social tonics crafted with organic adaptogens, natural nootropics, and functional botanicals to elevate your mood and empower you to be truly happy in your own. Feel the float. That's not a sponsorship, by the way. That's just something I believe. I'm a big supporter of organic adaptogens and natural nootropics, as well as functional botanicals.
You doing a read right now?
I'm trying to figure out what they are. If anybody is in the chat,
Monroe just put his glass of whiskey as a comment there. So
Brian Monroe, absolute legend.
We got to get him on the Hurricane next week.
Absolutely, Brian Monroe, you're invited to the Hurricane broadcast next week. I did pop for the Beluga reference on yesterday's episode.
Yeah,
reminds me of good times.
They can't find beluga anymore. I don't know if it's a result of like the war in the region or what, but it's very difficult to find. You got to go deep into Sunny Isles, deep into Little Russia, like under the table. But luckily for me, the drinking days are done. But shout out to Brian.
What'd you do with your stockpile of beluga? Can I come over and just is it like in the backyard?
It's like a collector's item now. It should be selling.
Is it going to be like if we lose to Florida? Yeah, there's just buried in the backyard and bottles of beluga will be exhumed.
It's like Airplane. Like remember Airplane when the guy picks the wrong week to quit drinking? I quit drinking right before 2022. We lost to Middle Tennessee State. You know what I mean? We got smoked by Duke. Forget about Georgia Tech the next year. So it's been some of that could have come in handy. But
Monroe's in. He says he's down. So.
Yeah, I want to hear about his weekend more so than his analysis of the game. I'm sure that's going to be a greater story from my man Monroe. But here we got the original Kane again. Thank you for your support. You are all invited to our informal Canes tailgate. DMP have the address. Yeah, you guys are doing awesome work. I'll definitely stop by. We'll say what's up. And anybody here who is going to be in Gainesville, shout us out in the comments. We'll be running around. At least I will be running around trying to say hi to as many people as I can. Yeah. I'll put names to faces here. And then if you want to keep trashing us, you could just make a new name and trash us there after meeting us with the.
There's a solid contingent of people that travel to the games. You've probably seen me out at the tailgates because everyone communally likes to hang out. And you've seen me happy, hyped up, feeling good about games. And you've seen me very low, very sad. Hopefully you'll see me leaving one of these big games happy for the first time since 2017 against FSU. I'm really hoping that happens because in that venue in particular, I've left with dejected emotions. In part because of bad officiating. We had that Sean Spence game. Why is it referred to as a Sean Spence game? He just balled out, but there wasn't any other good stories in that game.
There was such an aesthetic with that 31.
Oh, with the white on white? That was
white on white 31. He balled out, and there really wasn't anyone else that flashed for Miami, I guess.
No. Mar was not doing much. I remember that bad call with I think it was Deontay Thompson, dropped the ball. They reviewed it, and they still got it wrong. I mean, one of the reasons why I believe review should be abolished entirely. To me, it's killed sports. But that's my old man take.
I mean, we have like a pretty sad state of existence over the last 20 years when we refer to that as like a Sean Spence game. There's also a game we refer to, the Dallas Crawford game. Like we used to have Sean Taylor games.
Daryl Langham game?
Yeah, like there's a Bubba Baxa game in here.
There's
Daryl Langham games like on the positive side. But look, like you start identifying some of these games and it's just the Evan Sheriff's game. Like these are not good moments. So I'm really hoping for a Ruben Bain game. I'm hoping for a Damien Martinez game. I'm hoping for a Cam Ward game that boosts his Heisman credentials. And I think we're turning the corner, dude. Like it's legit. And I think we've learned from our previous sins in hyping some limited talents up. These guys are different, but that venue is different. That's a tough place to play week one. So hopefully they can come through because if they do win that game, as we've mentioned, and we'll continue to mention, schedule really opens up nicely for this team.
By the way, we got a comment here. 692 Canes. Seems like D-Money is trying to get rid of Pete.
He's been trying to get rid of me for 15 years.
I'm trying to bring him back in. We're going to see some expanded Pete.
Yeah, hop in.
Yeah, Pete's going to be staying in. He's going to be hopping and staying in. We might get. Maybe it's the small screen. I think that's why
we got to get a border, Pete. Or can't you? You're in the same room with us. Can you just like walk over here?
Pete's so small. See, that's why they think they're getting rid of you because the small screen was his idea.
I didn't want to cut your face off, and then I was getting blocked by the questions.
Well, you got to run the broadcast.
Here, so
I don't want to like limit you whatsoever.
Mike Diaz says, "Pete, hop in."
We'll get Pete Hop in premiums made.
David Ferguson says, D-Money, it's time to live up to your nickname. Negative recruiting can take you only so far. Listen, I do all of the above. I negative recruit Florida State any chance I get. I retweet bad FSU news and tag recruits. I have no shame in doing that. People were saying, get a life. You're like, who tags, young kids. I don't tag them to do anything related to UM, but anything that results, that involves.
Well, this is a Florida State fan. He's been on the comments here for.
Oh, is he hate watching?
We have a few of those.
I appreciate your support.
Watching.
If you scroll up.
Can that person answer me a question? Because I've seen like a recent thing on social media. Is this a phenomenon, Pete, where like I think FSU fans are rooting for Florida? I've seen some memes where they're rooting for Florida in this game. I can't wrap my head around that.
No, it makes sense. I do this as well. You got to pick the team that's doing worse to win.
Really?
The FSU plays UF every year. So every year you got to kind of do this math on who's going to win this, who you're cheering for. And if you're not betting on the game, to me, you root for the team that's doing worse because it makes the team that's doing better feel worse.
Yeah, when a team has like national title prospects, right. I think on the balance of stuff, I'm far more rooted for FSU in that game than Florida because I hate Florida more. I don't know where you are in the stages of hate. Certainly social media is really twisted all of this because you can't find like a more poisonous fan base right now. Maybe UCF gave them a run for their money in their heyday, but FSU's having their moment in toxic hell right now where the rivalry is probably going to benefit of it. But I'm of the school of thought that UF is Miami's biggest rival. I've always kind of felt that way. It's awfully convenient headed into this big game, but I genuinely hate Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the truest definition of a hater. I hate to see you do well. You know what I mean? When you're doing well, I hate more. So I think that to me, whoever's doing well gets more hate. Hate them both. UF, I probably hate purely more just because the fans are more annoying. Like they learned about college football, like in a blog in the library. You know what I mean? They're just the nerdiness of them. And then they're college football experts overnight because they read, some column.
Pete, hop in. Who do you hate more?
I definitely don't like UF. That's really because the Tebow era spawned so many fake Gator fans, down here in Miami. But we also don't get the chance to play them every year. At least like Florida State, like we have something to say every year. We can at least, play them every year. So Florida, it simmers when you lose to them. It simmers for way too long. So I would say Florida.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's right. We win this one. Like we play them again next year, right? So we can go 2 for 2 and then make them.
Yeah, the centennial of the Miami Hurricanes football program.
Your boy is sorry to Mike, but your boy has turned around now. He says, D-Money, you're straight. We're on the same page. I love riling Candy Canes.
Listen, it's all love. We appreciate your support tuning in to the CanesInsight podcast. Yeah, like and subscribe. Appreciate you, David. So he's the FSU fan?
Yeah.
All right. So
from what I can gather, he says he likes riling the Canes.
We'll deal with you guys. We're gonna have your own podcast. We'll have our own wrestling themed show for that one. We'll work on the name for that one. Hurricane is the next one, Wednesday, 5 to 10. But man, we got a lot of stuff rolling here in the comments. Let's see here. Man, a lot of comments about the size of Pete's screen. Those are controversial.
Pete decided the size of his screen. Pete, hop in, back me up here. I'm not pushing you out.
I minimized it from the time we started to now.
Can you get like extra small? Can you be like what's the tiniest screen that we can get? This is falling on me because I'm the new guy, and people are thinking that I'm pushing Pete out. I like Pete on the air. As a person, not so much, but on the air, I like Pete's contributions.
I think we fixed it. Take a look at it now, D.
It's like Office Space when you put them in the worst office or in the basement trying to get them to quit.
Yeah.
So
the red stapler.
We're giving Pete
They're
little
calling
box.
me thumbnail Pete.
All right, Pete. Pete, look at that. I love it. Blocking the face here. Well, actually, Pete, I need you to reveal Mike's face because it's relevant to this next.
I fixed it.
It's relevance to this next. It's relevance to this next comment.
I just did it for a second.
We need to see Mike's face because it's relevant to the.
Hold on. Here, there we go.
All right, so this is relevant to the next comment. So if there's one thing I love, it's ethnicity talk, and especially when it makes Mike uncomfortable to talk about. So we got a question here from my man, the number one Canes fan in Brazil. Abrao Santana, my guy. Is this Ryan fella Lebanese? I've seen him in Brazil a few times at his family's restaurant, Mustafa. Great show, guys.
No, I'm not Lebanese. I am Irish, Italian, Cuban. My dad was born in Cuba. My mom was Irish, Italian from Queens. But I think there's a lot of like Mediterranean, Persian kind of crossing. If you look at Hollywood, if you look at wrestling, the famed, infamous Muhammad Hassan was played by an Italian. I do have olive skin there, but no, I'm not Lebanese. But you're not the first person to say that I look a little Middle Eastern, though. I do get that from time to time. Yeah, my wife is actually Lebanese Cuban, so very familiar with the culture. Very tough people. Her grandfather used to butcher lambs in the middle of Pinecrest. So all the kind of white Pinecrest people would call the cops on him. I don't know if this is true or not, but the story is that there's a sweet spot in the lamb's brain that if you hit it square, they don't have a stressful death and the meat is more tender. So he would be headbutting lambs on the sweet spot to kill them and then serve the food. Headbutting them.
And I guess this is why rams smash like this, because they're trying to hit the button. So if you hit the sweet spot, if any lamb experts or any Lebanese people or people of Arab descent can confirm this in the comments. If you hit it in the sweet spot, they don't stress out and die like if you stab it on the body.
So this dude was arguing that by headbutting these lambs, he was doing this humanely.
I think it was more for the tenderness of the meat.
Okay.
Can we find the sweet spot on the gator?
I'm sure.
I actually don't mind eating gator. I know it's an acquired taste. Some people may argue it's a bit gamey. I like gator.
I like it too.
A little tahini on that too. Chewy, but fine.
I had about 5 more minutes of lamb talk that you cut out.
John Z, I gotta get to John Z.
You emboldened him.
John Z from the start, he was not happy about the early he wanted notes on the team, and he's asked this question about 5 different ways.
I mean, there's shows every day here at CanesInSight.
Yes,
I mean, guys, there aren't many notes.
He's asking a
we're banging the
specific
same
question
drum here
about the defensive tackles. Are the top 4 D tackles good enough? And he was asking about Justin Scott earlier as well. So I'll let you guys
preseason. I think there was one publication that called
freshman
Justin Scott a freshman All-American, 1 on defense, 1 on offense, right?
Jordan Lyle being the other, yeah.
Well, look, take this one. I got some.
No, you go for it. I'm apparently the guy that's holding back all the fun. Go on with the D tackle talk.
So My favorite, anything above 300 pounds is my sweet spot to get to really dig into. So
that's what they said about you in college.
Are the top 4 defensive tackles good enough from John Z? So I would say, here's my honest opinion. I think to beat Florida for sure. ACC, yes. To really be that national championship type of team, you need first-round defensive tackles. And I think that's what Georgia's had in the past. That's what Michigan had last year. You look at Clemson. You look at Miami when Miami is truly Miami. You talk about Vince Wilforks, William Josephs, going back to Cortez Kennedy, Russell Maryland, Jerome Brown. I mean, I could go on and on. We know the names at the defensive tackle position. So I think that's Warren Sapp. That's when Miami is truly Miami, when his defensive tackle position is elite, and that kind of elite. And I think that's consistent with the national championship teams. I don't see first rounders there right now as far as the upperclassmen, but I see a lot of good players, a lot of 6-year guys. And I think in the match with the Gators, who, they're small inside in the interior line, either small or bad. Slaughter's small, Harris is small. The other guys are just bad.
What is the Gerald Willis here? How does that throw off your math? Because you could make an argument when he had it cooking, he was the best DT in the nation, and we weren't very good.
Well, we had that defense that year. Look at 2018. Look at that defense. I believe that we were ranked top 5 in most categories. You in the comments can look it up, but that was probably our statistically best defense 2018 when I met you in LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Now the problem that year, the offense really kind of cratered, and Rick, was dealing with health issues and his son, and we know the story with
Bubba backs again.
Right. But the defense that year was exceptional. One of the highest, probably our best ranked statistically defense in maybe 2 decades.
Yeah.
Look it up. Probably since the early 2000s.
But that would be kind of the outlier historically.
Well, yeah. But I mean, you need all of it too. We had great quarterback. We were QBU at the same time.
And I think you could look at 2017 and say, while there wasn't a bona fide NFL star on that D-line, it was really deep across the board. They were 7 deep along that D-line.
You had NFL body types, a lot of NFL body types. So I think you look at Norton, McIntosh. To name a couple there.
And that was our 2 best teams, the 16 and 17. So defensive tackle makes a huge difference, but to be national championship, you need the elite defensive lineman, and then also, quarterback, which I think we had that. Defensive lineman.
I mean, to win a national championship, you're going to need them across the board. You're going to need to be stacked across the board. So thank you for getting us back on D-tackle talk. And that's genuine, by the way, because I'm not sure what D-Money was going for when it came to headbutting Lambs.
Well, I'm bringing it back to the Lambs. So JD Carmona on the comments, were they just talking about the G-spot? Did I hear that right? No, for those tuning in, we're talking about the portion of the lamb that if you hit it square, the lamb dies without tremendous struggle. And my guy, Rhett Lloyd, says right here, between and above the eyes, he looks like a guy that's killed some animals with his bare hands. So I trust Rhett Lloyd. I hope he's telling the truth and not just mocking us here, but I think he is. Between and above the eyes for the lamb, the sweet spot. I mean, look at the Rams that they smash. They're probably trying to aim for the spot. That's why Rams collide. They just, they're looking for that kill shot.
I don't have all the answers.
I don't think Mike has. It doesn't look like he has much to add.
I don't.
I want to say one thing on Justin Scott, guys, because obviously we're all excited about him. But I've said it a few times. I'm just not going to rely on a freshman D tackle. I think he's going to show flashes, but I don't think you want to be in a position to rely on him as one of your top 3 guys right off the bat, because it takes time for those young guys in the interior to do their thing. Again, excited about him. I think he'll show flashes this year. We'll be very excited when we see him out there. But personally, I'm not counting on him to be a dude right away.
Yeah, what do you make of the freshman All-American thing? It's always such a difficult thing to project, and most of the time people are just looking at the previous year's star ratings. But I do think Lyle's going to get involved in this offense, and if you have some games that are out of hand, maybe you'll have some of those moments. Not comparing him to Frank Gore at all, but when you knew that he was next in line because of some of these blowouts, he would come in and do some damage. I've been really impressed with what he's done so far, or hearing really great things. I think that one's on the nose. Justin Scott's probably a little bit more difficult to project, but I think generally freshman All-Americans are almost impossible to predict outside of the Jeremiah Smiths and Dylan Raiolas of the world.
Especially that position, which is such a grown man, old position. But I talked to some people. I think Justin Scott's going to play a lot this year. I think he's ready to play a lot this year.
A lot.
And when you get to that top 10 in the country ranking, I mean, those guys tend to play. Clemson's had some big defensive tackles that have played early and successfully on ACC championship type teams. So it can be done when you get to that level of talent. But of course,
we were projecting Ruben Bain to do this, and he was a guy that would move across the line. And I think while in many people's views he surpassed expectations, my expectations for Ruben Bain coming in were kind of like that high, and he was dominant.
Oh, here we go. So Joshua Edwards was it's going to be 5 hours every Wednesday during the season. 5 hours next Wednesday.
Hurricane. That's a one-time special that we might do, once a year. That's, it's Hurricane. It's a big deal. It's 5 hours. I don't have that kind of time.
Tune in. Make sure you tell your friends. I don't know when you got to go today. We're about 1:10, hour 10. I can always go 5 hours. I got back to school day at North Beach Elementary. I'm happy to miss that if I can.
I got a 4:00 meeting. Pete, hop in. How are we doing on the numbers? Should we keep it going?
3:24. So I think it's probably time to get to some wrestling talk.
Wait, hold on. We still got some more sweet spot talk. JD Carmona says it makes sense. Lions kill each other by going specifically for the spine to paralyze the other lion. So, it makes sense that the animal instinctively knows the weak spot of the other animal, similar to the Gators' weak spot on the offensive line, on the defense, at the skill positions, and the coaching staff. And Gators have a lot of weak spots.
Hop in.
D has the talent and ability to compare anything to the Canes situation.
Well, Rhett Lloyd. Okay, so see, he might be a Floridian, so he knows the Gator sweet spot as opposed to the lamb. He's saying the between the eyes is for the Gator, not the lamb, but probably works dead center between the eyes on back of the head. Maybe you should bring this to your man on the Big Show.
Yeah,
on the Big Show.
Ron
McGill, man. He might know the answer.
He's a Gator though.
Is he really?
Yeah, I think he played for the basketball team.
Oh, he's a tall guy.
Yeah, he's very tall.
You guys got some height on that show, man. You guys got a good 5-on-5
All
team.
the tall Cubans. They all went to the Le Batard show proper.
Here we go. Johnny
Lagoon's asked about the best wings, the best burger, the best pizza in Miami.
You just
blazed? He's hungry.
He just blazed, I think, listening to the CanesInSight podcast, like and subscribe, and he's feeling it, but he wants to know best pizza in Miami. What do you got?
Best pizza in Miami. I like 11th Street, more Detroit style, Mama Dora's. I'm a big fan of Detroit style pizza. There's plenty of great pizza places there. Burger places. I really love the burger at the Bright Side. Shout out to the Bright Side, one of my favorite haunts. Pete, hop in.
Yeah, I'm going for wings and burger. I'm going Keg South, 104th Pinecrest. That's my spot. So that's my take. Pizza. I'm a big Lucali guy. I know that's in your hood over there, D.
My answer is a blank. If you would like me to say your place next time that this question is asked, CanesInsight@gmail.com. Go ahead and email. We are going to be really pushing a lot of content coming up this fall. If you want to advertise with the CanesInsight podcast on the website, audio, social media, CanesInsight@gmail.com. Send it out. By the way, shout out to the Miami Hurricane team store. I'm going to do a live there possibly this week, certainly before the Gator game. We'll do a live show there just to kind of
pick me up some orange slides.
Oh, yeah, those orange slides. If they have them, I'll get them for you. Or the black strategy jersey. The black jersey is the hot one right now, number 24 for Chris Johnson, I guess. But they got a lot of them over there.
For the year 2024.
It's the year 2024. But
we're still doing that? I thought this was 2000. I thought the rules changed. All right. If you want to get your Chris Johnson jersey / the year, celebrate this year, Miami Hurricane team store, MiamiHTS.com. Really good looking jersey. And 24 is a cool number. So it's, could have been like, 26, Not
as cool as 31 in all white, though. Oh, the Sean Spence.
Kevin Dennis has been asking about the left guard position here, which I know it's on everyone's mind. It
was on mine for sure.
Yeah. So
I drove in wondering about it.
There's some secrecy there, so I will let the Gator imagination run. I think there's multiple guys that can play left guard. I'll just go over some names that I've seen at left guard. I've seen McCoy at left guard. I've seen Ryan Rodriguez at left guard. I have seen Kinsler at left guard, which he was not playing previously. It was mostly
got really high hopes for Tommy Kinsler. I know the staff was really high on him entering last season. I know he faced some adversity there, but I'm really high on Tommy Kinsler, and it's good to see him back in action.
Big dude, super athletic. I know you talked to people in the know, and they're super excited about what he can do.
Yeah, there's some people on that staff that have really talked him up and think that he's they project him. If he does all the right things and gets his technique down, he could be. And Pete, hop in here. You're my scout in this regard, but they actually like his NFL chances.
I was looking at comments. Who were you talking about?
Tommy Kinsler.
Oh yeah, I mean he's young.
Look at that. That was a genuine reaction. Look at those beautiful light eyes open up. Peter, are you Lebanese?
He gets it all day. Ask him all the time because of the last name.
A lot of people think my last name's Aziz, even though I'm a big fan of the Saudi Pro League. No, I'm not.
Did you subscribe to Cristiano Ronaldo's official?
I saw he dropped it today. He's following Tom Brady's lead there. He said, subscribe. So,
like and subscribe to the CanesInSight podcast.
Dude, you talk about a guy with a body type, man. And he's been someone, D, you'll echo this sentiment. The staff has been like excited about him for a couple years now, saying like once everything really comes together for him, he's a guy who has NFL potential.
I've heard people say this could be a potential first round draft pick. Now we've heard that a lot. Shout out Zion Nelson, but we've heard that a lot around these parts. But the Tommy Kinsler hype train has left the station quite a bit ago, and now we just kind of got to see it because it's become almost a legend, the legend of Tommy Kinsler.
Yeah, and like I said,
they call him.
The legend of Bruno Kinsler has played more guard this camp than I've ever seen him play. He's really mostly played tackle. So guys at that left guard that I've seen play there, McCoy, Okunlola, Francis Mawanoa, Ryan Rodriguez, Kinsler. So there's been a lot of guys at that spot who we'll see. Again, I wish I could tell you more. You'll know after the Gator game. Once they get past the Gators, I think this is going to open up a little bit.
It'll make making content a lot easier too.
Yeah,
I feel like we're guarding state secrets here.
We are. A lot of comments about
That's how bad we want to win this game.
Oh yeah, huge. A lot of comments here about the screen. People are complaining the plain white TV screen is trash. People are saying there's fingerprints on it.
Plain white. Yeah, we're trying to get it right here. It was like weird because it was teal.
Yeah, he said we need to go back to the orange and green, but it was messing up the color balance and
like
different things.
The in and inside appeared teal, and that was also confusing. But we're trying to help improve the lighting, guys. Give us time. In the meantime, I'm sorry.
We're at 1,300 people on the live. We haven't gotten to the wrestling talk yet, so people are tuning in. Got some questions here. Let me just ask you a simple one here. Oh, I like this one from Bama. Better bet Miami to win the national championship or Cam Ward winning the Heisman? What do you got?
Probably Cam Ward to win the Heisman. Just because I don't think we're there. We're in a 12-team college football playoff. We'll see how that. I'm very curious to see how the committee ranks, not just the 12, but who they attribute bye weeks to, because I assume it's just supposed to be the conference champs that get bye weeks, but like how many is there going to be 2 Big Ten teams that get a bye? I'm curious to see how that goes. I think this is probably a Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon year. And I think Miami has some catching up to do. Dan Lanning's got to show that he can win the big game. There was a lot of people out of that Oregon region, which I know you're well familiar with, that claim to be happy to see Mario Cristobal go. But Mario Cristobal took over the worst team over this Oregon era. 4-8, won 2 Pac-12 championships, 3-0 against Washington. And Dan Lanning's 0-3 against Washington. I don't believe he has a top 10 victory. He doesn't have a Pac-12 title. I think that Dan Lanning's a great coach. I think he's a good recruiter. I think he's got immense support over there. And I do think one day Oregon will win that elusive national title. It just does not compute when you do the side-by-side comparison. And it's not like Mario Cristobal didn't give him a lot to work with.
No, and I think if you're fantasy booking this playoff this season, Miami, Oregon in the playoffs would be something.
I did put in a future on Oregon to win the title. You want to talk about stacking rooms? Look what they did with that quarterback position over there. Evan Stewart, I'm a huge fan of. They got stallions all across the field, and I think there's a path for Miami to get there. But I think we're still along the steps of progress right now. We're not going to be back instantly like that, especially when there's so many loaded teams in the nation. I think we'd all be happy. And if we get to the college football playoff and we end up losing there, we'll all be dejected and it'll hurt like hell. But that's the goal this year, a stepping stone. And we need probably one more step in the process to get to that level where we can legitimately talk about national titles. But I do think Cam Ward comes in as highly touted a quarterback as we've had in quite some time. If you're looking at a bet between the two, Heisman Trophy for him for sure over Natty.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's a weird Heisman year too. It's like, who is the preseason guy that you're just over the moon about? It's kind of like that Troy Smith year. He won the Heisman one year, which is crazy in retrospect, but sometimes there's years where it's wide open. A guy like Cam Ward puts up numbers, high-profile program. He's got talent around him. If the team does well, he's going to get a lot of positive attention and credit, as he should, for that kind of turnaround. So, yeah, I agree with Cam Ward.
I also wouldn't put it past Dion to go all out to just get Travis Hunter that award.
Yeah. Yeah, but, is he going to last the whole year?
Is he going to last the whole year? Are they going to be playing meaningful enough games? I mean, are people going to be paying attention to any Heisman campaigns that either Hunter or his son have over there come November?
And do they split votes? Because, to me, I think that the best player, in my opinion, on that team is Shedeur, in my opinion. I think he's by far the most valuable player on that team. I think he's the most exceptional. I mean, he's the guy that – Hunter is a rare style of player. But if you look at the impact on the game, I mean, Shedeur really carried that team with no help up front.
Yeah. I'm not bullish on Colorado's chances this year. I think people know that about me, but I do think that Dion's going for broke when it comes to the Heisman hardware this year.
Yeah, maybe it'll be a controversy. Maybe that's just a little Colorado story. They're both going for the Heisman and they feud. Mm-hmm. Which is a nice transition. We've seen that story before. Two people going for gold leading to a feud. Maybe that happens with Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. So transitioning, because I know we got to get you out of here, to our Wrestler of the Week. And Pete, queued up. I'll go first here on our Wrestler of the Week. I'm going to go with Randall Keith Orton, RKO himself. Not exactly a name that is a surprise to people or is really an old name, but went to Monday Night Raw this week with my kids. Some of you guys might have been there in Fort Lauderdale.
Heard it was a hot crowd.
Listen, man, you missed out. About it's almost 12,000 people there. I mean, it really was packed, super loud. You could barely hear Gunther when he came out. There were USA chants at him. So it was, and the biggest pop was for Randy Orton. The company's flying right now. It's insane. Raw used to be a chore. I know you've been to some of those Raws. Where like the whole side of the camera that you can't see, the hard cam is empty, and it's like just a depressing vibe. 3 hours. You're like, wait, look at the clock. It was not like that at all. Flew by, packed house. Kids loved it. Orton got a huge pop. And I wanted to highlight Orton because it's amazing that a guy that never really had a gimmick is this over for 20 consecutive years, almost 21 consecutive years. His name is Randy Orton. That is his real name. He just wears normal trunks. I
would argue he had a great gimmick with the whole Legend Killer bit that really elevated him. Like legends helped put him over. And he was surrounded by a lot of guys like Triple H and Ric Flair that helped bring his career along. But since then, he's kind of just like, he can go crazy at any point. And that's kind of been his whole angle.
Kind of reminds me of myself.
A little bit. You do have some Randy Orton voices in your head type of deal. You are the Viper, Peter Ariz.
Very hard.
It was that's you. If there were a wrestler comp for you, it would absolutely be Randy Orton.
He's broken early. Burned a lot of bridges.
Yeah, a lot of bridges. Can never trust him.
Went off the reservation. Yeah. Totally normal.
Leave a chat and you'll never see it coming. Leave a chat out of nowhere.
I must ask, any relation to Kyle?
No.
I
thought there was something there.
Pete, hop out.
Yeah, Pete, hop out of this one.
Cowboy Bob Orton, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the grandfather, I never knew who it is, but apparently was a wrestler as well.
Pretty sure same surname. Yeah, Randy Orton, really great in ring, has a total package, good on the mic, great in ring, methodical in his approach, really a good example of you don't need to do the craziest moves in the world to get a match over with the crowd, get them invested. Really good heel work when he was feuding with Triple H. Really sinister stuff there. Great entrance theme too. Was really a fan of his stuff when he was a young hotshot. I think he became the youngest world champion in WWE history when he beat Chris Benoit. Shame that particular highlight reel won't make it through the annals of time. But great wrestler in tremendous shape. Seems like he's got 5 more years. And I, like you, am just counting down the days till he does that program with Cody Rhodes to tie the legacy storyline all together.
That's night one WrestleMania. Calling it right now. It is August 21st. Night one WrestleMania. Canes Cat Heat 305.
Oh, again, active.
He's been on there
the
all day.
most active. Said Raw was awesome. I agree. So, Mike, who do you got here? Wrestler of the week.
I've got one that did his best work in ECW, and he wasn't there for very long, and I don't really think he ever got involved in the ring, but I'm going with the loose cannon, Flying Brian Pillman. This is a guy that played football in college, made it to the pros with the Cincinnati Bengals. Undersized guy, was really one of the first smaller guys to get over with the crowd and get into really hot programs. His match with Jushin Thunder Liger when I was younger really sticks out. And then he formed, quite honestly, one of the coolest tag teams ever in WCW, the Hollywood Blondes, that got 2 over, that Dusty Rhodes tried to squash them. It was Stone Cold Steve Austin, then Stunning Steve Austin, and Flying Brian Pillman. Coolest tag team. They were so cool. That was the first time that I ever experienced as a kid. Like this team is so cool that I want to root for the bad guys. And then he was one of the guys that in the early onset days of the internet realized that he could actually use it to keep kayfabe. Now everything's on the internet. You know, Dominic Mysterio's married. This guy worked the internet, worked the dirt sheets, worked Meltzer worse than he's being worked now. Like, this guy had the entire internet in a frenzy because no one knew what he would do. There's a great special that you could probably find on Peacock around the loose cannon Brian Pillman. So ahead of his time. It's a damn shame. He got in a really bad car accident, had dependency issues, tragically passed away. But Flying Brian, from his character work to his ability in the ring, I'd stack up that Jushin Thunder Liger matchup against anything going today, and it holds up. This dude was so far ahead of his time, was so cool too. You look back at that ECW promo, and the stuff that he was doing was really out there. People genuinely thought this guy was insane, really broke so many walls down and ushered in that entire Attitude Era with how over he got by pushing the envelope, by people not knowing whether or not his behavior was real or fake. Just a tremendous character gone way too soon, and a pretty good feud that never got the payoff it deserved with Goldust. Shout out to Champy from earlier on.
Yeah, no, ultimate what if, because he died Bad Blood pay-per-view right before the Attitude Era really kicked off full speed, and he was
so well positioned for the Attitude Era. He was an Attitude guy. Remember, like, one of the things that ushered in the Attitude Era was a highly controversial. I remember watching with my dad, where my dad was made uncomfortable because Brian Pillman pulls out a gun because Stone Cold Steve Austin's breaking into his home. Just like really out there stuff that you can't imagine being on TV today.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Really, the two moments in that era, really my life, because that was at the point where you're kind of, you know what's going on. You're like, at least for us, we're like 11 and 12. But those two, that moment, and then when Goldust first came on the scene, were the two times where I was just like, is this like how it works? Like, I thought I knew how this thing worked. You know what I mean? I think I figured it out by this point. And now this is a little different than what we're used to. Like, am I seeing the same thing that's happening? So those two stick out in my mind. Also with Pillman, the Cincinnati Bengals trunks.
Yeah. Oh, dude, legendary. Tag teaming with the Z-Man, Tom Zenk. The Booker Man, we mentioned Booker Man briefly, where he exposes the business on national television, exposing that Kevin Sullivan is booking stuff behind the scenes. Just really just had the entire industry really on a string. And he was bending the internet at his will when he was really humming. No one knew how to get the sheets talking quite like Brian Pillman. And I really wish that someone would be that committed. Now it's so hard with social media. Everyone knows every little minutia about your real personal life. He was a genuine loose cannon, and no one knew what his next move would be.
Yeah, I mean, no one keeps kayfabe like that. I think Rey Mysterio's wife, I've never seen her act normal. She's always mad about something that's in the story. So she's maybe the last true one.
I think Dean Ambrose is a good comp in that he's very private. And when Dean Ambrose started making waves in the indie scene, he was doing a lot of Brian Pillman type stunts, had an awkward interaction with Mick Foley that kind of got him on some radars there. I like people that you don't know too much about their personal lives. They don't want to show you that stuff, not only because it keeps their privacy private, but it also makes their characters more believable. And for the crazy guys like Ambrose, who's now known as John Moxley, or Brian Pillman, it just adds to the lore. And Brian Pillman was a pioneer, and no one's been able to quite do it like him.
Switching gears from the loose cannon of the ring to one of the loose cannons of rock and roll with my song of the week, I'm going with Guns N' Roses' Rocket Queen. This is one I mentioned at UGK, The Return. That was one of my playlist songs for getting ready for games. This one is also on my playlist every single time. Really, it's almost 2 songs because you have the amazing beginning part, just rock and roll, and then the outro, which is just epic. There is a bridge in this song where legend has it, and you can hear it on the song, that Axl Rose is having sex with the bassist girlfriend on the recording. You hear it. I'm dubious because it is timed so perfectly to the drums that it couldn't have been natural. You know what I mean? Like, it couldn't have had it exactly timed to the song unless the song was playing in the right tempo. And those songs.
Is that an urban legend? Like the Love Roller Coaster is supposed to have a real 911 call in it, where someone's getting murdered.
I mean, they say it that's what it is. That's what the story they tell. And the song has moans. I mean, there's definitely some moaning going on. If you check out, we're going to have all these songs in the comments. We're also going to get a playlist going as we get more songs stacked up. But a rockin' song.
Have you seen them recently?
I've never seen Guns N' Roses live. I did see Axl Rose when he was the lead singer for AC/DC.
Oh,
when Brian Johnson got his throat issues. Amazing.
Really?
One of the best shows I've ever been to. Worked perfectly. I mean, did not miss a beat. The place was rocking.
Jealous.
Nobody was mad about it. It was awesome.
I've seen Guns N' Roses twice. Once at Marlins Park, right down where we were at, and fairly recently at the Hard Rock Guitar. The vocals aren't there anymore. I really wish I saw them in their heyday, but when they were in their heyday, he wasn't doing Guns N' Roses. He was trying to release Chinese Democracy. So much of their prime was just eaten up by BS. And by Axl's, look, admittedly, diva behavior. This is a guy that, hey, James Hetfield got burned on stage. Can you go 30 minutes early? No, how about I show up 2 hours late and I play for 30 minutes?
Just a riot, yeah.
Just a notorious a-hole back in his day. Unfortunately, the pipes aren't there, but it's still really cool to see, especially when he and Slash pose. No matter the pipes, it's still a cool visual to see.
And the last of their kind, really, because there hasn't been one after them. These grunge bands, they just, it wasn't the same rock and roll. You still have the rock. I think the roll part lost with Guns N' Roses. So anyways, I'll be blasting that on the way to games. So what do you got for your song of the week?
First contemporary song that I'm going with on this playlist. This is a band that I think is not just next, but I think kind of, you can make an argument, is going to be now. Really looking forward to this upcoming release from a band called Fontaines DC. They had a tremendous last effort. Really love the vocal stylings of the lead singer. They're working with James Ford from Simian Mobile Disco, who I think, for my money, is one of the best record producers going right now. I think if you listen to some of this new album that's going to be dropping soon, there's about 4 releases out on streaming platforms. It kind of feels like something big is bubbling. This is like when Oasis was about to blow up. I think that Fontaines DC is probably going to be making a run for biggest contemporary young rock band out there. Really great catalog. Immerse yourself in it. Starburster is my song. I think it was a lead single from this upcoming album. Doing stuff vocally that not many people are even thinking of doing. They incorporate breathing into the hook of this song. Just masterful production. I'm really excited about this band. Can't wait to see them tour this album. Really excited about that producer. Can't wait to see what he does next. But Fontaines DC, if you haven't heard the name, go seek them out because they are next in line.
So we go from the 80s, we're incorporating sexual moans into the song, to now we're incorporating breathing. It's a cleaner, gentler era of music.
Well, no, these are sexual in context. Like, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm reading, Pete posted something here because I don't know about this band. You're schooling me. I'm reading, it says genre bending neon. What are we talking about? Like, what's the arrangement of music? Like, musicians, like what's the setup and what's the
kind of this is a standard rock band, but there's like kind of Britpop elements, especially when you look about the vocal stylings. I think that there is a lot of bands that are coming out today, they don't really think to make you think when it comes to lyrical content. I think that these are nuanced lyrics, some deep, well thought out creative stuff, and incorporating the breathing into this one particular hook on this one song makes sense because they're talking about having sex. I'm gonna hit that business for some momentary blissness. No one's really thinking like that, making hooks like that, especially in the rock game. That's really something more from R&B and hip hop. So genre bending from the lyrical content to the way that these songs are constructed. It's a band that I'm so excited to see what they're doing next. And it seems as though they're going to keep pushing the envelope like all great artists, especially at this stage in their career, really challenging themselves to not just replicate the formula that got them to that point, but push beyond those boundaries. And that's exactly what Fontaine's DC is doing.
And are they American band? British
No,
band?
I think they're from across the pond. I'm almost sure of it. Just so you can hear the accent of the singer. Yeah. They're Fontaine's DC does sound like an American band, but no, they're from across the pond. They opened up for Arctic Monkeys on their last American tour, and there were a lot of comps there. I think with the early stages right before Arctic Monkeys blew up to the size that they did, I think there are a lot of similarities, and very young act too, much like Arctic Monkeys out of Sheffield. They were very young when they were crowned next. I think Fontaine's DC is of that mold.
Pete, before we get to, I want to get to this question real quick. Pete, I want to ask you as you hop in, have you understood anything we've talked about for the last 30 minutes?
Wondering if there's a defensive coordinator named Fontaine.
No, I was curious if Randy and Kyle were related. That was about it. But no, I have no idea what's going on right now.
All right, we'll bring you back to your comfort zone with our guy Stormin' Back You. Appreciate your support. Thank you, everybody joining, especially Stormin' Back You and everybody that's contributed and signed up and liked and subscribed. Really appreciate you guys. We got almost 1,400 people here on a Wednesday afternoon.
Why does it always go up for the pop culture stuff, Pete?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Listen, it seems like we got to give the people what they really want.
Is that school's out and just kids are rushing to the devices to talk about wrestling? What's going on here? I'm very confused. This is a Kane show, but when we talk about pop culture, wrestling, and music, then the numbers go up.
We got Stormin' Back You bringing it back to Green Tree. So he's asking, is Miami at the point where practice is more challenging than games on Saturdays? Some position rooms may have that argument, in my opinion. Look, we got to win some games on Saturday
just before
for that part. But I understand what you're saying, which is competition. I think focusing on positions where the competition is really intense. I would say, left guard, which we talked about, that's a tight one. Running back, definitely a tight one, especially as Mark Fletcher gets back up to speed. We mentioned Jordan Lyles, potential freshman All-America on that list. Martinez, Fletcher, Lyle, AJ Allen's done really good. Chris Johnson, that's a good one.
To Pete's point, Graham Mertz is not a bad quarterback. He may not be better than Cam Ward, but he's certainly better than the next in line at Miami. And a lot of guys are maybe padding their fall camp stats on some of those other guys in that room. This is a team that you have to worry about. This is a team that has talent. I'm not there yet. I got to see this team have a signature victory. I thought it was that Texas A&M game, and then the season fell off, and so did Texas A&M. I'm not really bullish on Florida's chances, but I know how difficult of an atmosphere that can be, even when Florida isn't particularly good, as they showed 2 years ago. So just beat Florida.
I will say this. When Francis Mauigoa and Jalen Rivers are going against Ruben Bain, Messidor, Barron, that might be their best opponent for the whole year. That is very much true. That they were not going to face better than those guys until maybe you get to the playoffs and you're playing a team like Georgia.
Yeah, but Florida's got some wide receivers that if we had over here, we'd be really excited about, Pete. I think you can. Eugene Wilson is.
Eugene Wilson, I think it starts and stops there for at least what they've shown on the field. Obviously, Elijah Badger, someone that they were excited about, but it doesn't seem like he has, won that starting job out and out. But yeah, Eugene Wilson for sure. I think he has a spot on any team in America.
But I think that's what Stormin' Back You is getting at hearing with the comments is that, you will have people on the other side that are on your level. And I think certainly those positions, Mish Powell, Restrepo is a really good battle. Any running back going against Francisco Mauigoa, Kiko Mauigoa is a battle. So we got a little bit of that going back, which is what you want. But hey, appreciate all of you. We are up to almost 1,400 right here, 1,398. I don't know if we'll get over the
threshold.
Make
it make sense, Pete. Make it make sense.
I don't know. I think it has something to do with we've been on here now for an hour and almost 40 minutes. So at least we're not losing. Doesn't look like people are dropping off.
Do people like the new background? Outside of that one dissenting voice?
Yeah, there were like 5 dissenting voices.
There was one guy, Mike M, who had 2 comments about it. He said change it back to orange and green, and then he said new background sucks.
Really? But how could you tell it was orange and green? It was I couldn't tell it was orange and green. It looked white, teal, and white.
We're getting a lot of we're at 1,400. There we go, baby. 1,401. We're getting a lot of Penn State comments. My man, Mike M, who I love. Mike M is simultaneously turned off and turned on by the off topic. He says, D-Money Pete, please don't get offended. I'll watch your show every day except Wednesday.
All right.
Then his next comment, Tool, P-O-T, Tool, sober. So he's got some songs of the week.
You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. But if you're watching every show that we do outside of Wednesdays, that still makes you an A1 viewer. So we thank you for your support.
Mike M is always a big supporter. Mike M, give us your wrestler of the week next week.
Maybe I'll come up and fuck up a Tuesday for you.
But well, you're definitely going to mess up Wednesday because that is going to be 5 to 10 p.m. Hurricane. We got Sedano, Bear Falica, Kevin Clark confirmed. We got some more in
Brian
the
Monroe.
Falica?
Oh, yeah, Brian
Falica. I think you made him a penis.
Yeah, he's not watching anyways, but we appreciate you. He will be on Wednesday giving you the insight that only he can provide in terms of.
Wow, Master Tesfazion says, what a stream, go Canes.
Master Tesfazion's in town. Maybe I invite him, our favorite Sun Devil.
Man, I've been spelling his name wrong in the chat for years. I got to change your name on my phone. Master, you're the man. Appreciate you. We got to get you on.
He's
Master, you're on this stream. Can we go? He's going to be here. He's going to be your house.
Yeah, he's going to be living in my house. I may just bring him to
next week.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Let's bring him in.
Yeah, bring him to these studios.
Master, hop in on Wednesday in person. You have more time than Pete on the little screen.
For someone that doesn't really support Canes athletics, he's gone to a bunch of Canes games with me, and no one can talk. No one can issue. I saw the way that you looked at me when I dropped the F word, so I'll clean up the language. No one can issue the banter quite like Master Tesfazion.
We got real Mochetta. Got some Canes over here. Look at this. Everybody's popping in. It's what time is it? Maybe we should start the product at 3:54.
We'll think about that. But I do have a 4:00 meeting, folks.
Thank you everybody for supporting us. Like and subscribe.
Hurricane's going to be a big deal. 5 hours.
5 hours. We'll keep it rolling. 5 to 10 next Wednesday. Get you ready for the season, for the opener. We got my preseason pod. I've been tailoring suits, timing songs, writing material. We will have you ready for that Gator game. And of course, we're on tomorrow. We're on the next day. We're on every day. It is Canes Insight. Like and subscribe. Appreciate you. Go Canes.
Pete, hop out.